That's a good speculation.
I don't know why else he would be speaking someplace else.
Well, unless he's got, yes, certain parts of his contract that they take off to consolidate this.
Or has vacation time for
Well, I just really regularly did that the last month or so. I sort of passed them by and anyway, it just worked out that there's no reason. Is Dolly off or did I thought she said she had one more Sunday, but maybe that was last Sunday.
I thought she said she was going to be here this Sunday.
No, we have all that, Dolly. I doubt though. I don't think she's attending next week though.
Yeah, she won't be here next week.
So she's probably have an annual meeting and a board meeting simultaneously.
Yes.
We just there's just four of us.
Stay right in the pews and do it. Right, welcome to First Universalist of New Madison on this sultry summer day. Seems that we get a lot of those lately. Any announcements?
Just our annual meeting will be held next week after the worship service. Shouldn't take a long time. We'll have an agenda and give everybody the opportunity to go over things, ask questions, what have you.
Okay, annual meeting next week after service. For those of you who want to attend and can't be here, I think we'll have the telephone, speakerphone, whatever set up.
If not, we'll use our cell phone systems and open.
Yeah, whatever. If you want to attend, there will be different ways to do it. I may even live broadcast it. I'll take the camera over and live broadcast it. If anybody's interested in what we're talking about. We're going to do the board meeting and the annual meeting all at the same time. And our quorum is kind of whatever's here is our quorum. So
Recognize members, but guests are welcome, but
yes.
Recognize members as voting members.
And guests are more than welcome. And if you want to welcome, we'll put you in the church and make you a voting member almost post haste. So we can always use more lively minds. All right, Prelude, White Cliffs of Dover. White Cliffs of Dover, pretty nostalgic piece. If you've ever seen a World War II movie, it's a pretty impressive sight when you see it, or if you have across the English Channel, even on a hovercraft, which is always fun. It's pretty impressive. And they have a really nice castle in Dover right there that's open to the public, which if you're ever in England, I highly recommend taking a tour there. All right, today we are talking about the Messiah. This is my continual search, not very fruitful, on trying to just understand what is going on with Judaism and Palestine. The connection they have has been historic. The problems they're having have been historic. And I'm looking for the root of the behavior. And I bring you an example every week, and I'll bring you some more examples this week, of Israel acting in a non-Judaistic or non-Jewish fashion. Jews have been known throughout history from the time immemorial. We could say from the Old Testament, God gave them some pretty vicious orders which they followed. But basically, they are a caring, compassionate people who think always of the other person involved. That does not seem to be the case with Palestine. So we're going to talk about that. So that is the principle of the Messiah. Jews have a Messiah and Christians have a Messiah. Interestingly enough, they are completely different. So we'll go into that. Our scripture is Jeremiah chapter 23, verse 5. The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will raise up for David a righteous branch, a king who will reign wisely and do what is just and right in the land. That is the Jewish prediction for Jews of the Messiah, a king who will reign wisely and do what is just and right in the land. Our chalice lighting, Waiting for Now, by Mandy McGlynn. Everything is about to change, and it already has. It will be, it was, it is. The dawn you eagerly await to end the long cold darkness is already full sun far off in the east. Yet even after light's return, spring is months away. 30 long years pass after his birth before the Messiah comes. Stones of justice have been tossed into the lake, but their ripples have not yet arrived, have not yet resolved into the kingdom, already present among us. While we wait, let us seek in the darkness of the now and the not yet, for the treasures God has hidden there. The riches of the secret places only found by night. This is what is promised us. The wheel of life turns ever on, and darkness is a path to joy. Our opening hymn is number 44. In your blue hymnal, we sing of golden mornings. Those lyrics are by Ralph Waldo Emerson. We sing of golden mornings, we sing of sparkling seas, of prairies, valleys, mountains, and stately forest trees. We sing of flashing sunshine and life-bestowing rain, of birds among the branches in springtime again. And that was in 1830s, early 1900s. Okay. Our affirmation is a long one, but I think it is relevant. And basically, what I added to the affirmation, I took away from the presentation, the sermon, so the time should come out the same. The Death of American Innocence by Tess Baumberger. Innocence does not die at once in that first raptured thrust. It dies in each small seduction, in every subsequent acquiescence. American innocence did not die in that bright, flashing terrorist act. It dwindled breath by breath in great and tiny acts of terror. It died with every smallpox blanket sold to an Indian village, with every arrogantly greed-wrestled acre, with every language and culture that disappeared. It died on the trail of tears. It died with every African shackled and torn from homeland, family, with every auction-block sale of humanity, with every black woman raped by a white slave owner. It died in the Middle Passage. It died with every civil rights activist beaten or killed, with Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and the Black Panthers. It died in Montgomery and Selma and Little Rock. It died with Roosevelt's refusal to accept Jews fleeing the Nazis. It died with every black man sent first to the front lines. It died with 2 atomic weapons dropped upon Japan, 170,000 lives lost in 2 great flashing instants. It dies with every chemical weapon developed, with every nuclear test, whenever it happens, with every bomb or jail built instead of a school. It dies with every KKK rally and every single lynching, with every man searched by police because he's black, with every black man beaten by white officers, with every child who witnesses or perpetuates gang welfare. It dies with every racist or sexist or homophobic or anti-Semitic joke. It dies with every bombed synagogue, mosque, temple, with every black church burned, with every abortion clinic bombed, with every hate-filled word or deed. It dies with every sweatshop built on a poorer country's soil, with every product bought, made by a political prisoner, with every homeless person, with every starving, despairing child. Oh, innocence never dies at once, only delusion does. And this is an old litany of transgressions. Let's list the butchery that is going on now. Our government is sponsoring over 150, it's more than that now. Souls have been killed in the Pacific and Caribbean Ocean because they were on a boat that was supposedly carrying drugs. No trial, no investigation, no interception, just bombed out of the sky and killed. Children removed from all over the USAID program, all over Africa, India, and South America, from AIDS prevention, from malaria prevention. Hundreds of thousands documented children have died in Somalia because food and medicine was not available. The toll of death is incredible. The lack of regard for living life is incredible. Bombings, indiscriminate bombings of civilian areas in Iraq, in Iran, sponsored with the weapons that come to Israel, for Palestine. The list is endless and it is never ending, and we are responsible for doing something about that. Okay, Joys and concerns, that actually, I guess, should qualify as a concern, because we're starting out. Do we have any individual personal? So hopefully things are going well then. Summer is upon us. Tara is still having another funeral this week. They are coming fast and furious, which I think is part of what happens when you have older congregations. I guess I'll list as a concern the New Carlisle Church of the Brethren. Their air conditioning has been out for 3 weeks. They called a contractor. He said he sent the proposal over to somebody in the church board. And nobody in the church board received it, so they contacted him, and he says, "Oh, I'll send it again." He never did. My advice was, get another contractor. If you've waited 3 weeks without air conditioning, and they have 80 or 90 people in their service, so it's a pretty severe situation for them. It's time to move on to somebody who's a little more responsible. So we'll see. Their service today will be live. We'll see what theirs looks like. It'll be interesting contrast compared to ours, because we're used to all the fans and the doors open. All right, our sunflowers for Ukraine, no change. As I mentioned last week, and I think I've mentioned a couple weeks, Ukrainians are gaining more and more ability to strike. They are now striking with drones in Siberia, thousands of kilometers away from Ukraine. And I don't know whether they're trucking them in or taking them by sea, or whether they're actually, I can't imagine they can fly 1,000 kilometers or 1,500 kilometers, but they are striking petroleum fields all over Russia. And Russia is now rationing gasoline, if you can believe that. One of our secretaries of state, and I can't remember who it was, said Russia was nothing but a gas station with an army. Basically, Russia, their entire economy is based on producing oil and shipping that and selling it around the world. They produce nothing else of value, and that's what they live on. So he called it a gas station with an army, which is a pretty apt description. And when you start striking at the gas station, the concern that's being raised is that the more Trump says he will not support NATO, the more desperate Putin becomes, and there's speculation now that the Baltic states are in danger, that because he cannot win in the Ukraine, he will be tempted to invade the Baltic states, Latvia, Estonia, the little countries that are right on the edge of Russia, that have been there since World War II. So just one little more thing to keep in mind. Israel, we're talking about Israel today. I can list, and probably will list as we go along in the future. I've got a picture of a bulldozer wiping out an olive grove, a Palestinian olive grove, one of those D9s that they buy from Caterpillar. Settlers have taken Ross Azana, there's an American congressman who was touring Israel. He was detained by the settlers. They rampaged through the Palestinian villages. They kill Palestinians indiscriminately, and these are on video. They're not fake videos. You can tell they're real videos. And even if they were, there's a multitude of them. There's 3 or 4 different sites that produce these videos that people take with their cell phones. What is being done in the name of Israel is incredible. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Israel and Zionism are 2 completely different things. Israel is a state, the result of Zionism. Zionism is the drive for the Jews to have their own homeland. That has become the overriding concern for the people who adhere to Zionism. No matter what, they will have their own homeland. And let me I've talked to you before, and this is a better map. This is what the conservatives in the Israeli Knesset, or the Israeli legislative body, are producing and saying this is the goal of Israel. This is the goal of a greater Israel. Israel is here. All of this land, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, even up into Turkey, is what the Jews in the Zionist movement say God has promised them from 2,000 years ago in the Bible and the Torah, the Holy Book. And that is their goal to accomplish that. And people say, well, that's ridiculous. That could never be the case. If you watch what is happening in the West Bank, where every single building is being leveled for reconstruction, not for Palestinians, being leveled for Jews. Now they've moved into Lebanon. They've cleared a 30 kilometer section on the edge of Lebanon with the same exact principles going on. Every building is being leveled. Everything is being consolidated. It is basically like a land clearing exam or a land clearing example to create an expanded Jewish state. So we have our concerns, and like any other mass movement, any other cultural movement, Zionism is not an adherence of all Jews. There are Jews in America, there are Jews all over the world, but there's a complete organization of American Jews that are anti-Zionist. They want to be the ethical, historical Jewish remnant. And I'll talk a little bit about what the percentages are, what the changes are, and still trying to figure out why this is happening to a people who suffered the most heinous atrocities during World War II. And prior to that time, you all know what pogroms are in Russia, that the population used to just rise up periodically and massacre Jews, burn their villages, burn their houses, and kill all the Jews they could find for no reason other than they were not the same tribe. It looks like a reflection of what's happening now, that the Israelis are killing anybody who is not their tribe, which would be the Palestinians. Any others? Floods all over. The scariest thing, anybody going to Florida for vacation? Anybody going to go swimming in the river in Florida? Did you see the news where the alligator bit the woman's arms off, bit both of her arms off, and she bled to death before they could get her to the hospital? It showed the first responder coming up, and if you're familiar with the new first aid things, they have automatic tourniquets now that come with the band, a little crank to tighten it down, all in a little folding case that you pop open and stick on a bleeding limb. But there was not enough limb left to put the tourniquet on. If your arm is cut off the shoulder, there's nothing to put the tourniquet around. And evidently, the people that were there said both her arms were bitten, and the other guy said bitten off. So if you can imagine what that was, and she was still conscious, and you could hear her talking. Terrible thing. So alligators are not pets. I saw in the news last night 2 girls in a kayak, it was a see-through kayak, which is pretty weird by itself, petting an alligator. You're just next in, you're going to be the next news story.
Yeah. It's just waiting to happen.
Yes, and lighten up, people, brighten up, get smart. So anyway, we'll light a candle for those people. People are being swept out to sea on the riptides. Death and danger follows us wherever we go. There's no prediction for that. So, and then we'll light a candle for our missing friends. Hopefully everybody is doing well. I have not heard anything. And a candle for all those hopes and dreams, all those fears and terrible things that you were dreaming might happen. Hopefully they never do. Okay, children's story. This is just a quick Messiah thing.
So, did you know Messiah is Hebrew for anointed one? In Greek, that's Christos. Yep, that's where we get Jesus Christ. It's not a last name, it's a title.
So, Greek for Jesus is Christos, and that means the anointed one or the expected one. So Jesus Christ means Jesus the Messiah. That's what the word Christ is translated from in Greek. And the next one is another short one.
Prophecies of the Messiah in the Old Testament.
This is the prophecies. The Messiah will be born of a virgin, Isaiah 7:14. The Messiah will be born in Bethlehem, Micah 5:2. The Messiah will be crucified with criminals, Isaiah 53:12. The Old Testament predicted the Messiah. Did the Messiah actually arrive? There's a divergence of opinion. The Messiah of the Jews, which was predicted, all these predictions, was a conquering king. The Jews, and that's why when Jesus came into Bethlehem on a donkey, and that's why the Jews from the Sanhedrin, the Jewish leaders, basically said he's a false Messiah, he's a rebel, he's a leader of the people who should not be here. That's why he was condemned to death, because he did not come in on a white horse with a sword and drive the Romans out. That's what the Jewish Messiah is predicted to do. In Judaism, the Mosaic, which is the Jewish word for it, which I'm not pronouncing correctly, is expected to be the future king from the Davidic line who will restore Israel, bring world peace, and inaugurate the Messianic age. The Messiah is understood as a human leader, a direct descendant of King David, who will be anointed at the end of days, the king at the end of days, and fulfill God's promise to Israel. Israel, and that is one of the things that is basically the heart of Zionism, is Israelis, the Jews, are the chosen people. You've heard that before. The Zionists take chosen people literally. I can bring you quotes, and I probably will sometime along here, of Jewish leaders in Israel saying the people who are not Jewish, which is people like us, Protestants or Christians or any other religion, are put on earth by God to serve the Jews. I've showed you the pictures of the Jews disparaging Christian crosses, Christian symbols, statues, spitting on the door of the cathedral in Jerusalem. That is considered part of the basic fundamental path of Zionism, is that Christians or anybody who is not a Jew is put there by God to serve Jews. We've gone through the Old Testament examples when God says, kill every person, every man, woman, and child, kill every donkey, every goat, every dog, every cat, wipe out the villages. That is the Old Testament. That is not the God of the New Testament, and that is the division we're going to find in what the Messiah is for Christians. He is not considered divine. He is not the Son of God or even God himself. He is not a prophet. God has no body. He exists in spirit only for Jews. Rather, he is a mortal leader empowered by God to accomplish his mission. The Messiah will accomplish his goals and not be killed, which excludes Christ from the Messiah as Jews see them. In contrast to the Christians who saw his death and resurrection as essential to the faith. In fact, the Jews were exiled from Jerusalem, and the temple was not rebuilt as prophesied. There is no Jewish idea of salvation. Another one you can look at is compared to Cyrus. Cyrus was used by God to rebuild Jerusalem and save the Jews, even though he was not Jewish. Are you aware of the parallel in today's history, today's example of government? A person who is raised up by God to do God's work, even though he flouts and contravenes every indication of being a Christian. Someone who is an adulteress, multiple marriages, I am calling a butcher or a murderer, and yet by the fundamentalist Christians is saying he is raised up by God to do God's work. So it doesn't matter whether he's a faithful Christian. It doesn't matter if he holds the Bible upside down. It doesn't matter that he never goes to church. It doesn't matter that he flouts every commandment there is. Every commandment is flouted. So key roles and actions. The Jewish tradition outlines several expectations: gathering the Jewish exiles and bringing them back to the land of Israel, rebuilding the temple in Jerusalem and restoring the temple service. And we may go into that sometime because the temple is an interesting, you've seen the Wailing Wall, you've seen that in every picture of Jerusalem, every picture of Israel. Evidently, that Wailing Wall, some historians have said that is not a remnant of the original temple. It is a Roman wall that was built. So we may do some investigation on that just out of curiosity. Reinstating the Sanhedrin, the ancient Jewish court system, establishing justice and righteousness, ending wickedness and heresy, and rewarding the righteous. Ushering in an era of peace and prosperity with no war or famine and a high standard of living for all. Restoring the Davidic monarchy, including fathering a male heir to continue the lineage. This is the Zionist, this is the Jewish idea of the Messiah. They are not against peace. They are not against having no hunger in the world. They are not against having better life for everyone, but it is under the rule of a Jewish king, a king with total authority. If you remember the story of David and the transgressions he committed, and who still is held up as a promising Jewish leader who needs to be emulated and whose descendants have the right to rule Israel in the future. Christians, on the other hand, believe Jesus is the Messiah as well because his life, death, and resurrection fulfilled ancient biblical prophecies. They view him as the promised anointed one sent by God to conquer sin, to restore humanity's relationship with the Creator, and ultimately bring salvation. The foundation for this belief rests on several cores: the prophetic fulfillment. Jesus fulfilled the specific Old Testament prophecies detailing the Messiah's life. This includes being born a virgin, that's Micah 5:2, the lineage of King David, Isaiah 11:1. Joseph evidently was from the lineage of David, however their genealogy goes. Even the betrayal by the 30 pieces of silver was foretold in Zechariah 11:12. The manner of his crucifixion was foretold in Psalm 22. The suffering servant. Unlike the military or political conqueror many ancient Jews expected, Jesus embodied the suffering servant described in Isaiah 53. The Old Testament, like any literature, can be taken in many different ways. You can interpret it, you can pick and choose what you want to find. The Jews concentrate on the prophetic king, the strong person who wipes out his enemies, who kills the Romans and drives them out of Jerusalem. The Christians found a suffering servant, a person who suffered for all and gave his life to save other people's lives. If you stop and think about it, that's a pretty amazing thing to have prospered in the world and spread as far as Christianity has. For someone who says, turn the other cheek, if someone demands your cloak, give them your cloak. For someone who says peace is the answer, forgiveness for all, that is not the natural human response. And you can see, because it is natural, not the natural human response, even people who profess to be Christians can't seem to be Christians. Christians believe he willingly bore the penalty for humanity's sins through his suffering and sacrificial death. They believe that Jesus defeated death by literally rising from the grave. This miracle validates his teachings, proves his divinity as the Son of God, and serves as the ultimate guarantee of eternal life. And that weakens my thought pattern a little bit, because maybe the reason Christianity spread throughout the world was not because Jesus was the Lamb of God who told us to forgive and forget and to help the poor, welcome the homeless. Maybe it's because Jesus promised eternal life. Maybe it's because people were so afraid of dying that they put their trust in a man and a God who said, if you believe in me, you will never die. Reminds me of the Mormons. If you're a good Mormon and a man, you will get your own planet someday. All right, Christians believe Jesus perfectly held all three of these offices, inaugurating the new covenant, prophesied in Jeremiah 31, which shifts the focus from strict adherence to the Mosaic law to grace and reconciliation with God. The Jews, as you know, and we've talked about, the Mosaic law is to be adhered to strictly. The more conservative you are as a Jew, the Hasidic Jews, There are neighborhoods, well, actually Israel and Jerusalem, but there are also neighborhoods in New York where if somebody drives through the neighborhood at night on the Sabbath, the Jews will stone their car because you are not allowed to drive a car. You are not allowed to walk more than so many paces to get somewhere. You're not allowed to cook. There are many Jewish laws that are followed very strictly, and because the Jews are intelligent, scholarly, investigative people, they have created workarounds for many of those things. There's some kind of, I'll look it up and check. They have like ropes strung along the road that somehow allows you to walk farther than the 20 paces or whatever to get from one place to another, to make that a Jewishly legal transmission. All right, Christians read Hebrew scriptures retrospectively as pointing directly to Jesus. Divergent interpretations exist. Traditional Judaism does not recognize Jesus as the Messiah, largely because he did not fulfill the prophecies, literal, physical restoration of the nation of Israel and material peace. Christians account for this discrepancy by embracing a now but not yet theology, believing Jesus established a spiritual kingdom during his first coming and will fulfill the remaining prophecies of earthly peace when he returns. They look for a second coming. The Jews deny there ever was a first coming. And this permeates American diplomacy now. Our current ambassador to Israel has moved the embassy to Jerusalem, which is a divided city owned, basically supposed to be shared between the Jews and the Israelis. The American government now stands 100% behind the Israelis. That's why the embassy has been moved to Jerusalem, which with no congressional approval or any idea of what is right or wrong in that situation. These people, and I told you before the contradiction, that the fundamentalist evangelical Jews, Christians, when Jesus returns, what happens? When Jesus returns, all the saved will rise up, their shoes will drop off or whatever, and they'll ascend into heaven. The people who do not become faithful Christians will be condemned to hell. Who does that include? All the Jews. If the Jews do not convert to Christianity, fundamentalist Christians believe Jews will go to hell. So on the one hand, you have the Jewish Zionists who say Christians are here to serve the Jews by God's prophecy. And then you have on the other side, the evangelical Christians who say, we're going to help you and we're going to create your state. We're going to save you so you can bring about the second return of Christ. And when he returns, you will convert to Christianity or you will go to hell. So both sides have no basic understanding, no basic caring for the other side. Both sides are using the other side, a plague on both your houses. Okay. In the end, the difference is simple. The Jewish Messiah is a national liberator and restorer of the Davidic kingdom. The Christian Christ is a spiritual savior whose primary mission is to atone for humanity's sins and reconcile humanity with God. Does this have some effect on Judaism today, the chosen people, the greater Israel? Zionism, them or us, has permeated the Jewish consciousness for more than 100 years. The leading to the end justifies the means, and highlighting in the Torah the justification for all these actions. While U.S. Jews turned away from Zionism, Israeli Jews doubled down on it. By the mid-2000s and 2010s, Israeli Jewish society became more and more chauvinist. 68% of Israeli Jews refused to live in the same building as an Arab. 46% of Jews would refuse to allow an Arab to visit their homes. 50% of Israeli teens don't want Arabs in their class. 63% of Israeli Jews said Arabs are a security and demographic threat to the state. 50% of Israeli Jews believe Israel should encourage its Arab citizens to emigrate. Zionism is robbing Jews of a soul. These are the same Jews that marched with Martin Luther King, that marched in all of the, I guess I can't say the same Jews, because we're talking here the division between Israeli Jews and the division between American Jews. American Jews supported civil rights. They marched with Martin Luther King. They believed in the equality of all people. They supported the equality of all people. They have died for the equality of all people. Somehow there's been a tremendous radical division between that understanding of Judaism and the Israeli understanding of Judaism. Maybe it's being under the constant threat. I don't know. I mean, that has something to do with it, because no one is saying the Palestinians or the Arabs are the innocents in all this, but the end is not one side destroying another. The end is finding peace between the two. Zionism, and then asked if they supported it, and expectedly, when presented with innocuous or aspirational definitions of Zionism, support for Zionism rose. But when presented with the lived experience of Zionism for its victims, Jews were repulsed by the ideology. When respondents were told that Zionism means the belief in privileged Jewish rights over non-Jewish rights in Israel, respondents' support for Zionism plummeted. Only 10% of respondents said they were definitely or probably Zionist. A full 69% said they were probably not or definitely not Zionist, according to this definition. Presented with this definition, the Zionism means privileged Jews have rights over non-Jews in Israel. 69% of Jewish Israelis said, no, that's not true. Compare this to the numbers I gave you before about the Jews who would not go to school with an Arab, who would not let an Arab in their house, that would not let an Arab live in their apartment building. There is a tremendous disconnect going on between two sides of the same question held in the same person. We have our own example here with MAGA. You can take any of these super conservative Christians, they will help anybody who's broken down on the street. I was taking some pictures with a selfie thing for my campaign in front of a cornfield. The idea was, I've told you that before, the cornfields now are 100, 150 acres. Has anybody seen a grouse? Has anybody seen a pheasant fly up out of the field? Has anybody seen a quail in the last 30 years? Why? There are no more fence rows. There's no more habitat for these animals, for these birds. So I was talking about that and showing a picture of a 100-acre cornfield. I was stopped on the road in the back of my truck with a little selfie stick. Every time a car came by, 4 times it stopped. Is there anything wrong? Are you broken down? Do you need help? No, I'm just rearranging some stuff in the back of my truck. That is what living in the country in Ohio is like. People care who you are, and they would stop whether I was black, white, yellow, red. If someone's broken down, they would help. And yet, when you offer them someone who says immigrants are evil, they rape us, they take our jobs, they vote for that person. Somehow there is a split. They are fundamentalist Christians who believe in the goodness of people, who would help anybody on a one-to-one basis, but when their tribe is threatened, they lose all ability to consciously understand what's going on. They lose that ability to interpret what their Christianity, what their faith means, and put it into practice. They revert back to what they call that animal brain, the amygdala. It says, when you're afraid, stick with your friends, don't take any chances. Okay, that's it. Rambled again all over, but hopefully you got the principle of what's going on. And after all this, I still don't know why Jews do that. I don't know why MAGA people do it, but we will continue the search as we go along. Okay, comments? Questions?
I guess one has to be careful when they compare surveys, statistical samples.
Yes.
Who was sampled, and what was the purpose of the survey? But as you, Tim, I often wonder. I mean, a lot of the U.S. statistical reporting now will identify the sample, and particularly in politics,
Yep.
They'll compare Democrats and Republicans, or conservative Republicans versus more moderate Republicans. That's a good thing. When it comes time to comparing it and extrapolating why, that truly is a challenge.
And the one thing I drew from this, and I think I knew it before but never really focused on it, how do you phrase the question? When they phrased the question about Zionism as Jews taking over and Jews being the rightful owners of everything, everybody was against it. When they said Zionism is homeland for the Jews, don't they deserve a homeland? Everybody's for it. So you have to be careful when people give you responses like this to see how the question was phrased. And that's the same way with political questions. When people try to survey you on politics, they can ask the question which determines what your answer is going to be. That's the thing you have to watch out for. So.
Yes, the most poorly worded survey questions are found on political fundraising, contribution ads, mailers, what have you. I mean, they would flunk statistical surveying techniques, strategies, coursework. They would never pass anything because they're so biased in terms of what they're asking. And obviously it's all related to what's going to be filled in the blank one when they return their form. And then often there's wording in there, as we all chuckle, there's wording that says, you know, if you don't contribute anything, we thank you for your time, that's it. We're not going to even bother to scan or tabulate your service.
If you look at the questions, sometimes they're more propaganda and they're directed like they're telling you what your answer should be. If you don't answer this way, you're not a good American, you're not a faithful American, you're not a patriotic American.
But I suspect some of their sampling, when they get returns that do not have contributions and possibly would go negatively to every one of their questions they're asking. That may lead to the return mailing envelope not having an industry that's prepaid.
Yes. You know, I've gotten, as a candidate, I've gotten questionnaires from the AFL-CIO and the American Nurses Association. They all have questions for you to answer, yes or no, and they're all, I mean, why would anybody answer no to any of these questions? Do you believe in labor unions? Do you believe that people have a right to bargain, et cetera, et cetera? Does anybody write no and then send it back to the AFL-CIO and say, I'd like to have your endorsement? I mean, I don't even see the point of sending out a questionnaire like that. And I'm not sure I see the point, and that's what I asked him. I actually went to the AFL-CIO meeting in Dayton and did like a 2-minute presentation. I actually asked him, can somebody explain to me why the police department, the union, the fire department union, those people are endorsed Trump, who is anti-union from the word go. It reminds me of the air traffic controllers who endorsed Reagan and then said, okay, we have our man in the White House, now we're going to strike for more money, and he fired all of them. These people are delusional. And nobody could give me an answer. What they would say is, we're a local, and we can endorse whoever we want. We can't control what the national union does, which is true. But they also said they all want me to buy my yard signs and magnets and everything else from a union producer, Union Bug. And I said, is there any reason I should go to a union shop and pay twice as much when union members don't vote for me? You have to do that because you're a Democrat and you have to go to the union. I mean, that's the rules that are there, and that's the questions you cannot ask. All right, offering. We're going to hear life is the greatest gift of all. And it's not just a repetition that you do blindly. This is really what we believe in. This is really what we want to happen. Let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung through every land by every tongue. All right, closing hymn is 298. Wake now my senses. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take us as your neighbor, both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Take as your neighbor, both stranger and friend. The rules of Christianity are everywhere. Everything you read, everything you hear, everything you're told, even by the people who tell you not to do it, they still are telling you to do it. All right, extinguishing the chalice. You guys are falling down on your Alzheimer's awareness thing. Anybody see what I forgot to do? I never lit the candles.
Yeah, I saw that.
You got to remind me here. I'll do another Richard thing on this.
Yeah.
Okay, where holiness is hard to see. As we extinguish this flame, may we carry its smoke with us into the streets, into the places where holiness is hard to see, but always waiting to be noticed. Let us go, with eyes open for wonder, in the worn out, with reverence for each passerby, with the knowing that the sacred does not hide from the world, it lives in it. Go now, not to escape the brokenness, but to journey beside it, and sometimes to bless it. Our postlude is Keep Your Sunny Side Up. let us know. If anybody has comments, questions, requests, let us know that as well, either by phone or on the internet. And our last picture, everybody see what this is? A chariot. Psalm 20, verse 7. Some trust in chariots and some in horses, but we trust in the name of the Lord our God. In fact, Israeli kings were forbidden to accumulate horses, Deuteronomy 7:16, because they were to trust God in battle. Something I never knew. The Israelites, the Jews who conquered in many battles, never used horses and chariots. If you saw the Scythian with the blades coming out the side of the hubs, then those things were destroyers in a battle. They just wiped out the infantry on the ground. But the Jews were told, and they follow the book, they follow the Torah, do not use horses and chariots, put your faith in the Lord. Interesting thing that I had never heard before. So, all right, coffee and donuts in the back. Board meeting, annual meeting, next Sunday after church. You don't have to be here, you can tune in. We may just go ahead and turn the camera around and do a live broadcast so you can at least see what's going on without having to dial in or do any work. So everything we do is in the open air, sunlight.